I'm Miranda Hayes, 26 years old, and last week my world shifted on its axis during what should have been an ordinary family dinner. For as long as I can remember, I've been the ghost in my own home, the daughter my parents barely noticed while they orbited around my sister, like she was the sun itself. Scarlett, the dazzling content creator who could do no wrong, received their praise, their attention, their everything. I was just there, existing in the margins of their vision, but that Saturday night, they finally pushed too far. We sat around the dining table, tension simmering beneath forced pleasantries. My mother's voice dripped with artificial sweetness as she smiled at me. "Sweetheart, Scarlett needs your room for her streaming studio. It's time to give it up." The words hit me like ice water. My fork froze mid-air as I processed what she'd just asked. No, demanded. My childhood sanctuary, the one space that had ever truly been mine, was slipping through my fingers before I could even respond. Before I found my voice, my father's hand slammed against the table, rattling the dishes. His face flushed red with anger. "This isn't negotiable. Agree, or pack your things and leave this house." The room fell into suffocating silence. Scarlett leaned back in her chair, a satisfied smirk playing at her lips like she'd already won. My younger brother Marcus shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting anywhere but at me. I could have fought back. I could have screamed, could have listed every overlooked achievement, every moment they chose her glamorous superficiality over my quiet determination. Instead, I smiled, a slow, deliberate curve of my lips that made my mother's eyes narrow with suspicion and my father's jaw tighten with uncertainty. They had no idea what was coming. They thought they could bully me like they always had, that I'd fold like I used to when I was younger and more desperate for their approval. But I had something they didn't know about, something that would flip their entire world upside down. And it was only a matter of time before they discovered exactly who I'd become. Growing up in Richmond, I lived perpetually in Scarlett's shadow. Our family occupied a 2-story house in a middle-class neighborhood where everyone knew each other's business and kept up appearances. Scarlett craved attention the way others craved oxygen. She'd pose for photos in every corner of the house, practice her smiles in bathroom mirrors, and dream out loud about fame and fortune. My father, a retail manager with a weak spot for his eldest daughter, and my mother, a bank employee who treated Scarlett like a precious investment, ensured she got whatever her heart desired. New outfits for talent shows, private dance lessons, even professional lighting for her bedroom performances. They'd applaud every mediocre routine, their eyes shining as if she were already gracing Hollywood stages. Meanwhile, Marcus was the baby, the accidental charm of the family. He'd toddle around with arms full of new toys, remote control cars, and action figures appearing like magic. Mom would scoop him up, cooing about his adorableness while Dad slipped him extra cookies before dinner. Marcus could do no wrong, his every giggle treated like treasure. They'd parade him at family gatherings, showing off his natural charisma while I sat quietly in corners, unnoticed and unremarked upon. I was different in ways that disappointed them. I loved books, thick volumes about mathematics, economics, anything with numbers that made logical sense in a world that often didn't. I'd spend hours in my room scribbling equations or reading about investment strategies, dreaming of a world where I could make my own mark through competence rather than performance. But to my parents, my passions were pointless wastes of time. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" my mother would sigh, glancing at Scarlett's collection of pageant ribbons and participation trophies. My father was more direct. "Those books won't get you anywhere in life." My room, with its sagging shelves of dog-eared textbooks and a small desk where I'd hide my dreams, became my sanctuary. It was the only place I felt safe, where I could be myself without their constant judgment pressing down on me. But even that wasn't truly sacred to them. When I turned 13, I started working weekends at a local grocery store, bagging groceries for minimum wage. I saved every penny, stashing cash in a tin box hidden under my bed, hoping to buy a computer to teach myself more about finance and investing. By 15, I'd saved nearly $500, every cent earned through my own hard work, mine alone. Then one day, Scarlett came home raving about a talent show that required a professional video entry. The fee was steep, and she needed a new camera to stand out from other competitors. Without asking, without even mentioning it to me, my parents raided my tin box. They took every dollar I'd saved to buy Scarlett a sleek camcorder complete with a tripod and accessories. "It's for your sister's future," my father said, barely glancing at me as he counted my money. Scarlett beamed, already filming herself twirling in the living room while I stood there chest tight, feeling my dreams crumble in my hands. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I went back to my room, shut the door quietly, and opened another book. That moment ignited something inside me. I wasn't going to beg for their approval anymore or compete for attention I'd never receive. I'd prove myself in my own way, on my own terms, in a language they'd eventually be forced to understand. Every time they praised Scarlett's latest performance or handed Marcus another unearned reward, I buried myself deeper into my studies. Mathematics became my escape, numbers my rebellion against their dismissal. I aced every test, stayed late at the library, teaching myself concepts beyond my grade level, and absorbed knowledge my teachers couldn't provide. My room transformed into my fortress, where I built plans to rise above their limited expectations. Scarlett kept chasing the spotlight with desperate intensity. She'd drag our parents to every talent show and school play, soaking up their cheers like they were essential nutrients. Marcus, still young and innocent, would tag along with pockets stuffed with candy they'd bought to keep him entertained. I'd watch from the sidelines with my nose in a book, systematically ignored. Once at a family barbecue, a neighbor asked what I wanted to be when I grew up. Before I could answer, my mother laughed dismissively. "Oh, Miranda's just into her boring numbers. Nothing exciting there?" Scarlett snickered, tossing her hair dramatically while my father changed the subject to her latest audition. I bit my lip hard enough to taste blood and walked away, silently vowing to show them all one day. My room held my secrets, notebooks filled with investment ideas, library books on financial theory, and a quiet determination that grew stronger every time they overlooked me. I wasn't flashy like Scarlett or coddled like Marcus, but I possessed something they didn't: focus. I knew I'd eventually find a way out of their shadow, not by leaving the house in dramatic fashion, but by building something they couldn't ignore or diminish. And I'd do it right here, in Richmond, in the room they thought meant nothing. After high school, I started building my dream from that very room. While Scarlett chased viral fame, I turned to something they'd never understand: the power of numbers and strategy. I'd always loved how financial concepts fit together, how they told stories no one else could see in the data. So I dove in with obsessive determination, resolved to carve my own path without leaving the house I'd grown up in. I spent late nights at my desk, poring over library books on finance and free online courses about investment strategies. My workspace became a command center covered in notes on stocks, budgeting techniques, and wealth management principles. I wasn't just studying, I was consumed by the need to master this world. When my mother walked past and saw me scribbling equations, she'd roll her eyes with undisguised pity. "Still playing with your numbers," she'd say, in a tone that made it clear she thought I was wasting my life. My father was worse, muttering about how I'd never make anything of myself with my head buried in books. They believed Scarlett's auditions and Marcus's natural charm were the future. I was just marking time until reality crushed my foolish dreams. But I wasn't wasting anything. I applied for every scholarship I could find, staying up until dawn perfecting essays and applications. My hard work paid off when I landed a full ride to a local college in Richmond. I studied finance with fierce intensity, acing every course while working weekends at a small financial firm downtown. The job wasn't glamorous, filing papers, crunching numbers for clients, making coffee for senior advisors. But it taught me how real people manage their money and their fears about the future. I listened to their dreams and anxieties, learning to turn abstract numbers into concrete solutions. By my sophomore year, I was giving informal advice to coworkers, helping them budget or invest small amounts strategically. They'd thank me with genuine amazement at the results, while my family remained completely oblivious to what I was building. After college, I didn't stop or slow down. I saw a gap in Richmond's financial landscape. Ordinary people needed personal finance advice, not just corporate banking services designed for the wealthy. So I started my own consulting business right from my childhood bedroom. I built a website on a secondhand laptop, using every trick I'd learned to make it look professional and trustworthy. My first clients were neighbors, small business owners, and retirees who wanted to stretch their savings further. I'd meet them at coffee shops, breaking down complex investment plans into manageable steps they could actually follow. Word spread through organic recommendations, and soon I had a steady stream of clients, teachers, shopkeepers, contractors, all trusting me to grow their money wisely. Within 3 years, my business was generating millions in revenue annually. I'd crafted a brand that stood for trust and tangible results, helping hundreds of clients build real wealth. But you'd never know it by looking at me or my lifestyle. I wore the same simple clothes, drove a used sedan that ran reliably, and kept living in my parents' house, in that same room with my old desk and shelves of books. I didn't need to flash my success around or prove anything to strangers. I knew what I'd built and what it was worth. My bank account grew substantially, but I saved strategically, planning for something bigger, something my family couldn't possibly imagine. They never asked about my work with genuine interest. To them, I was still the quiet daughter who'd never amount to much. At dinner, Scarlett would dominate conversation with stories about her latest streaming content, her follower count climbing into the thousands. My father would nod proudly while my mother gushed over Marcus's high school achievements, calling him our little star with genuine affection. If I mentioned my consulting work, they'd change the subject or give me that pitying look like I was an embarrassment they had to tolerate. "You still doing that number stuff?" my father once asked, barely hiding his smirk of condescension. I'd just nod, keeping my victories private and my future plans closer to my chest. There were moments when doubt crept in despite my success. One night, after Scarlett bragged about landing a brand sponsorship and my mother clapped like she'd won an Academy Award, I felt small again, that old familiar feeling from childhood. I sat in my room staring at client files, wondering if I'd ever be truly seen by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. That's when Nadia Foster, my friend from college, stepped in. We'd met in an economics class, bonding over our shared love for numbers and analytical thinking. She came over, immediately sensing the weight on my shoulders. "You're doing something real, Miranda," she said firmly. "They don't get it, and maybe they never will, but you're genuinely changing lives." Her words pulled me back from the edge, reminding me why I'd started this journey in the first place. It was the only time I needed that kind of emotional support, and Nadia was there without hesitation or judgment. I kept going, signing bigger clients, local doctors, small tech startups, even a few minor celebrities who wanted discreet financial advice, all while staying completely under my family's radar. My parents assumed I was scraping by, maybe working some dead-end office job that barely paid rent. They didn't know I'd paid off my student loans in full, saved a substantial fortune, and was already planning my next strategic move. My room, with its creaky floorboards and faded wallpaper, had become my headquarters, living proof that I didn't need their approval or recognition to succeed spectacularly. I was ready for whatever came next, even if they weren't prepared for the truth. That Saturday, I sat down at the family dinner table completely unaware that everything was about to change irrevocably. The air was thick with usual chatter, plates clanking as we passed around mashed potatoes and roasted chicken. My mother, always the orchestrator of these forced family gatherings, had that particular look in her eyes, the one that signaled she was about to drop a bomb disguised as a reasonable request. My father sat at the head of the table with rigid posture, ready to back up whatever she said. Scarlett scrolled through her phone, probably checking her latest engagement metrics. Marcus poked at his food, his usual carefree expression notably absent. I took a deep breath, hoping we could just eat without drama for once. I was devastatingly wrong. Halfway through the meal, my mother set down her fork with deliberate precision and smiled. The kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes or suggest anything good. "Sweetheart," she said, looking directly at me with false warmth. "We've been discussing this as a family, and Scarlett needs your room for her streaming studio. It's time to let it go." My stomach dropped sickeningly. My room wasn't just physical space, it was my refuge, where I'd spent years dreaming, studying, and building an empire they knew nothing about. The walls held my childhood sketches and memories. My shelves sagged with books that had shaped who I'd become, and my desk was ground zero where I'd launched a multi-million-dollar company. Giving it up for Scarlett's vanity project felt like erasing everything I was and had worked for. I opened my mouth to protest, but before I could form words, my father's fist slammed against the table, rattling glasses and silverware. "This isn't up for debate," he bellowed with finality. "Agree to give up the room, or you're out of this family. There's no place for you here if you can't make this small sacrifice." His voice echoed through the room, sharp and absolute like a judge delivering a sentence. Everything froze. Marcus's fork stopped midair, his eyes darting nervously between us. Scarlett leaned back in her chair, a smug grin spreading across her face like she'd just won first prize at a competition. "Come on," she said with dripping mockery. "Your boring finance job doesn't need a whole room. What do you need space for? Shuffling papers? It's not like you're making real money or doing anything important." Her words stung with familiar cruelty, but they weren't new. Scarlett had always treated my work like an elaborate joke, something insignificant compared to her flashy streaming career. She'd brag constantly about brand deals and follower counts, while our parents nodded along like she was building a media empire. My job, helping real people build generational wealth, turning their dreams into financial reality, was completely invisible to them. They didn't know I'd built a business worth millions, and I'd deliberately never told them. I didn't need their applause or validation, but losing my room, my anchor and safe space to feed Scarlett's ego was a line I couldn't stomach crossing. I looked around the table, studying their faces. Expectation, indifference, and smug satisfaction. My mother's smile was tight and impatient, waiting for me to comply as I always had. My father's glare dared me to defy him, practically begging for confrontation. Scarlett's smirk was a blatant challenge, her phone now face down as she savored this moment of perceived victory. Marcus was different, though. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, jaw clenched like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the courage. He wasn't joining their attack, but he wasn't defending me either, just caught helplessly in the tension, torn between family loyalty and basic fairness. I could have fought back in that moment. I could have laid out every sacrifice I'd made, every dollar I'd earned, every client whose life I'd transformed. I could have told them my boring job had outdone Scarlett's fleeting internet fame 100 times over, but I didn't. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, took a slow, deliberate sip of water, and smiled. A calm, knowing smile that made my mother's brow furrow with confusion and my father's eyes narrow suspiciously. Scarlett's smirk faltered just for a second, like she sensed something was off. Marcus glanced at me, his expression unreadable but alert. They expected me to crumble, to beg and negotiate, to give in like I always had when I was younger and more desperate for their love. but I wasn't that frightened child anymore. The silence stretched heavy and uncomfortable, filling the room like dense fog. My mother cleared her throat, trying to regain control of the conversation. "It's for the family," she said with manufactured gentleness, like she was coaxing a stubborn child. "Your sister's career is really taking off now. She needs proper space to shine and reach her full potential." My father grunted agreement, arms crossed defensively. Scarlett tossed her hair with practiced drama, adding, "It's not like you're doing anything important in there anyway." I kept smiling, letting their words bounce harmlessly off me like rain off glass. My room was so much more than space. It was where I'd rebuilt myself from nothing, where I'd proven them catastrophically wrong without saying a single word. They thought they could just take it, but they had no idea what I was truly capable of or what I'd already accomplished. I pushed my plate away, my smile never wavering. "Let's just finish dinner," I said steadily, my voice betraying none of the storm brewing inside me. My mother blinked, clearly caught off guard by my non-reaction. My father's scowl deepened, like he was itching for the fight I refused to give him. Scarlett rolled her eyes and picked up her phone again, dismissing me as irrelevant. Marcus just stared at his plate, fingers tapping nervously against the table edge. They didn't know it yet, but I'd already made my choice. I wasn't going to argue or plead for reconsideration. I had a plan, one that would turn their entire world upside down, and I was finally ready to set it in motion. It started the day after that disastrous dinner. I'd spent years strategically saving, my bank account swollen from my consulting business, but I'd kept my financial success completely quiet while living simply in my parents' house. Their demand to surrender my room, my sanctuary, lit a spark that had been smoldering for years. I wasn't going to just leave quietly. I was going to make a statement they'd never forget. I called Victoria Chen, the real estate agent I'd been working with discreetly for months while scouting properties in secret. "Victoria," I said with steady determination, "I want that house across the street. Let's close immediately." She didn't hesitate for a second. "It's yours," she replied, her voice crackling with professional excitement. "I'll start the paperwork today." By Friday, everything was finalized. The paperwork signed, the payment wired, and I held the deed to a house that screamed everything my family never believed I could achieve. I invited them over that Sunday, not to my new property, but to our usual family gathering at their house. They assumed it was just another opportunity to pressure me about surrendering my room. My mother greeted me with that same artificial smile. "Have you thought more about what we discussed? About Scarlett's studio?" My father grunted impatiently, already irritated that I hadn't immediately capitulated. Scarlett lounged on the couch, scrolling her phone, while Marcus sat quietly nearby, his eyes flicking to me like he sensed something significant was coming. I took a casual sip of coffee, set the mug down with deliberate care, and said calmly, "I've made my decision. I'm moving out into the house directly across the street." Their jaws literally dropped in synchronized shock. My mother's smile vanished instantly, replaced by confused blinking. My father's coffee mug froze halfway to his mouth. Scarlett's phone slipped from her hand, hitting the floor with a loud thud. Marcus leaned forward, brow furrowed like he was trying to process impossible information. "What do you mean, across the street?" my father finally barked, his voice sharp with disbelief and confusion. I pulled out the deed with casual confidence, sliding it across the table toward them. I bought it, paid in full, cash. Before they could recover from that shock, I continued, "And that boring finance job you've all mocked for years, it's not a job, it's my company. I've been running a personal finance consulting business for years now. It's worth millions." The room went absolutely silent. The kind of silence that feels like it's holding its breath before something explodes. My mother's eyes widened dramatically, darting to the deed like it was an elaborate prank. My father's face turned deep red, his mouth opening and closing wordlessly like a fish out of water. Scarlett, for once in her life, was completely speechless. her usual smirk erased entirely. Marcus just stared, his expression shifting slowly from shock to something softer, like realization and maybe even respect. Victoria called right then, timing perfect as if scripted. I put her on speaker for maximum effect. "Congratulations, Miranda," she said brightly. "The house is officially yours." That was one of the fastest all-cash deals I've ever processed. You should be very proud. I thanked her professionally, ended the call, and let the words sink deeply into my family's consciousness. Their disbelief was almost tangible in the air. My mother broke the silence first. "How?" she stammered, her voice mixing awe with suspicion. "How did you possibly afford this?" My father jumped in aggressively, leaning forward. "Where is this money actually coming from? You've been living here barely scraping by. This doesn't make sense." Scarlett, recovering some of her edge, scoffed defensively. "Millions? Yeah, right. You're obviously making this up for attention." But her voice trembled noticeably, betraying her doubt. I didn't flinch or waver. "Believe whatever you want," I said with calm firmness. "I built a business helping people manage their wealth strategically. I have clients across Richmond, doctors, business owners, retirees who trust me with their financial futures. I didn't need to flaunt it or brag. I just did the work." I stood up, picking up the deed with quiet confidence. "I'm moving out, but I'm not going far. You'll see me every single day, right across the street." That's when they started scrambling desperately. My mother's tone shifted with transparent desperation. "Sweetheart, honey, we didn't mean to push you out like this. Let's talk about this reasonably. Maybe we can work something out that makes everyone happy." My father nodded, his previous gruffness evaporating. "Yeah, you don't need to leave at all. We're family. Family sticks together." Scarlett, ever the opportunist, chimed in with barely concealed greed. "So, how much are you actually making? Maybe I could use some of that for my channel equipment. We could be business partners." Her eyes gleamed, already calculating how to exploit this revelation. Marcus stayed quiet, but I caught him looking at me completely differently, like he was seeing me clearly for the first time in his life. There was a flicker of guilt in his expression, like he was finally questioning how they'd always treated me. I shook my head firmly, stepping back toward the door. "This isn't about any of you," I told them with finality. "I'm done being invisible in my own family. I'm moving into my house, and I'm not here to bankroll anyone's mistakes or dreams. You made your choices. Now live with them." My mother's face fell dramatically. My father's jaw tightened with barely suppressed rage. Scarlett's eyes narrowed like she was already plotting her next move. Marcus, though, gave a small nod, like he actually understood what I was saying. I walked out, leaving them in their stunned, uncomfortable silence, and crossed the street to my new home. Boxes were already packed and waiting, my books, my desk, my entire life, ready to finally leave their house behind forever. A few weeks later, I stood on my front porch watching everything across the street fall spectacularly apart. From my vantage point, I could see the cracks forming, not in walls or foundations, but in their carefully constructed world. I'd settled comfortably into my new home, the one I'd bought outright with money I'd earned myself. Every morning I stepped outside, waved cheerfully toward their house, and went about my successful day. That simple gesture, a casual flick of my hand, seemed to haunt them like a ghost, a quiet reminder of all the years they'd dismissed me as worthless. It started with Scarlett. Her streaming career, once her golden ticket to fame and fortune, collapsed spectacularly under the weight of her own terrible choices. She'd gotten seriously hooked on online gambling, lured in by flashy betting apps promising quick wins and easy money. At first, she hid it skillfully, continuing to post her usual glamorous videos to maintain appearances and keep sponsors interested. But the debts piled up relentlessly, hundreds of thousands of dollars, far more than her sponsorships and ad revenue could possibly cover. Then came the scandal that destroyed everything. A rival streamer exposed her gambling addiction publicly, leaking screenshots of her massive bets and mounting debts across social media. The internet turned on her overnight with brutal efficiency. Her followers dropped by the thousands. Sponsors pulled out immediately, citing reputation concerns. Her carefully curated image shattered into irreparable pieces. She'd sit on my parents' porch for hours staring blankly at her phone, her face pale and hollow like she was watching her dreams vanish in real time. My parents, desperate to save their fallen star, made a drastic decision. My father, always quick to fix Scarlett's messes regardless of cost, and my mother, unable to let go of her pride in her successful daughter, took extreme action. They put their house, the one I'd grown up in, the one filled with decades of memories, on the market. It sold relatively fast, but not for nearly enough to cover everything. They scraped together every available penny to pay off Scarlett's creditors and gambling debts, leaving them with barely enough to rent a cramped apartment on the outskirts of Richmond. I'd drive by sometimes, seeing their old home sitting empty with a bold, "Sold" sign staked prominently in the yard. They'd traded their stability, their equity, their entire future for Scarlett's catastrophic mistakes. Now they were starting over in a place that barely fit their furniture, let alone their egos. Marcus was different, genuinely, surprisingly different. He'd always been the baby, spoiled constantly with toys and unconditional attention. But something fundamental shifted in him after I revealed my success. One evening, he showed up at my doorstep, his usual cocky grin completely gone, replaced by something vulnerable and real. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice low and almost breaking with emotion. "I never realized how unfair we all were to you, how blind I was." He admitted he'd been completely oblivious to how Mom and Dad favored Scarlett, how they'd systematically ignored my achievements while celebrating her mediocrity. It hit him hard, seeing their house sold, Scarlett's career in ruins, and me standing tall and successful across the street. He said he was done with reckless spending, designer clothes, and empty parties that led nowhere. "I'm enrolling in community college," he told me, his eyes steady and determined. "I want to study engineering, actually make something of myself instead of coasting on charm." I nodded. Not forgiving him outright, forgiveness would take time, but respecting the genuine change I saw in him. He walked away with squared shoulders, looking like he was finally ready to grow up and take responsibility. Every morning I'd step onto my porch with coffee in hand and wave deliberately at my parents' old house. Even after they moved out, I kept the habit, a quiet daily reminder of all the years they'd pushed me aside. Sometimes I'd see Scarlett visiting their cramped new apartment, her head down, no longer the radiant influencer she'd pretended to be. Mom and Dad would call periodically, leaving voicemails about catching up or family unity that rang hollow. But I kept my distance carefully. Their sudden interest felt transparently tied to my bank account rather than any genuine regret or desire to know me as a person. I wasn't cruel about it. I answered their calls occasionally, kept things superficially civil, but I wasn't their ATM or their redemption story. They'd made their choices consciously and repeatedly. Now they were living with the consequences. Meanwhile, I was settling beautifully into my new life. Nadia came over to help me organize a housewarming party. She wasn't there to provide emotional support this time, just practical help with logistics, picking out decorations, and organizing the guest list. We invited my clients, neighbors, and a few old classmates, filling my new home with genuine laughter and music. Nadia buzzed around energetically, setting up tables and joking about my supposedly fancy taste in wine. "You're really living your best life now," she said, grinning while arranging a tray of appetizers. "This is what success actually looks like." The party was a celebration, not just of the house itself, but of everything I'd built entirely on my own terms, without anyone's help or approval. As the weeks passed, I watched my family unravel gradually from my safe distance. Scarlett took a job at a local mall, her streaming days definitively over, her former confidence replaced by quiet resignation. Mom and Dad adjusted painfully to their diminished life, their voices tinged with bitterness whenever they mentioned me to others. They'd stop by occasionally, standing awkwardly on my porch, asking vague, transparent questions about my business. "You're doing so well for yourself," Mom would say with a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. Dad would nod mechanically, adding, "We're proud of you now." But the words felt like hollow afterthoughts, things they thought they should say rather than genuine sentiments. I'd thank them politely, keep conversations brief and surface level, then send them on their way. They didn't get to rewrite our entire history just because I'd succeeded despite them. They didn't get to claim credit for anything I'd accomplished. Marcus was the only one who seemed to change authentically. He'd text me regular updates about his classes, small victories like passing a difficult math exam or landing a part-time job in his field. "I'm trying to be better," he wrote once with simple honesty, "to actually earn respect instead of expecting it." I believed him because his actions matched his words. He wasn't perfect, but he was genuinely trying. That was more than I could say for the others. I'd reply with encouragement, keeping the door open just slightly, but not wide enough for them to walk back into my life without truly earning their place. From my porch, I'd look at their old house, now occupied by a new family with young children, and feel a strange mixture of peace and resolve. I'd proven myself, not just to them, but to myself. Their downfall wasn't my fault or my responsibility, but it was an inevitable consequence of their choices and values. And I wasn't done building my future. I've built a life in Richmond that's entirely mine, free from the suffocating shadows of my family's expectations and dismissal. I made a conscious choice to help Marcus financially, wiring money for his college tuition after he demonstrated real, sustained effort to change. He texts me updates regularly, grateful and humble, and I'm genuinely glad to see him grow into someone better than he was raised to be. But I've drawn a firm, non-negotiable line with Scarlett, my father, and my mother. Their calls go unanswered now. Their attempts to reconnect are ignored without guilt. I'm not here to fix their mistakes, fuel their regrets, or subsidize the consequences of their choices. They chose to overlook me systematically for years, treating me like I was worthless. I've chosen to move forward without them, and that choice feels increasingly right. Last weekend, I invited Nadia and a diverse group of friends to my home for a celebration of life and success. The living room buzzed with animated conversation, the kitchen filled with the warm smells of homemade food and the sound of genuine laughter. Nadia, always the life of any gathering, raised her glass high and offered a toast that made my chest tight with emotion. "To Miranda," she declared, "who built this entire life from absolutely nothing, who proved that quiet determination beats loud entitlement every single time." My friends clapped enthusiastically, their support a stark and beautiful contrast to the family I'd left behind across the street. We danced, shared stories late into the night, and made plans for future adventures. My house had become so much more than just a building. It was a tangible symbol of my independence, my worth, and my refusal to accept less than I deserved. Looking back on everything, I've learned that self-reliance is my greatest strength and most valuable asset. My family's blatant favoritism towards Scarlett led directly to their financial ruin and social fallout, a harsh but instructive lesson in the real cost of bias and blind spots. I realized that my worth has never depended on their approval or recognition. It comes from the work I've done, the lives I've genuinely changed, and the home I've built with my own hands and mind. You don't need your family's validation to shine brightly. You need your own resolve, your own vision, and the courage to pursue it even when the people who should support you choose not to see your value. That's the truth I've learned, and it set me free in ways I never imagined possible when I was that invisible girl sitting silently at their dinner table, dreaming of a different life. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever felt overlooked,